I was robbed when I was living in the Philippines, and this is a story that I've never shared with anyone online. In fact, only those very close to me know that this happened. But today I'm going to reveal everything to you guys so that you don't make the same mistake as me. Now, just before I get started, my name is Jordan. This channel is all about achieving freedom, time, location, and financial freedom. And one way of doing that is by creating an income stream online so that you can go and live in any country that you please, reduce your living costs, and then invest the money that you make into high growth assets in emerging markets. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, check out the link in the description below this video. But today I'm going to tell you guys how I was robbed in Manila whilst I was living in the Philippines. Now, this actually happened a few years ago. This was in 2022. I was living in Manila, having already experienced life in Davao, Cebu, Boracay, Palawan. I've lived all over the Philippines. It's a beautiful country if you know how to navigate around and if you know how to keep yourself safe. And throughout my time living in the Philippines, I never actually experienced any danger. I'd walk around at night by myself. I'd go out often. I was a bit younger then, so I always wanted to go and party. When I was living in Davao, which is in Mindanao, most people think of Mindanao as being a place that's quite dangerous. They've got a civil war happening in one part of the country there. Davao is basically the capital of that area, and a lot of people think it's dangerous. It's actually one of the most safe places because of the president, Duterte. He recently got arrested by the criminal court, or the International Criminal Court. There's a big scandal about it, but even then when I was going out in Davao, I didn't experience any sense of danger. They do have a curfew there, so at about midnight or 1 a.m, everything has to shut, including the bars and the clubs. But even during that time I was walking back home, I was taking taxis, never experienced any problems. And this is in a region where most people would assume that there is danger. And in fact, if you go online and you look at the statistics, the Philippines is one of the most dangerous countries in Asia. But I want to make it very clear that I've lived there, I've experienced the place, I've experienced the people, and throughout all that time, I didn't really experience anything bad, except for this one particular situation, which happened in Manila a couple of years ago. Now, funnily enough, this occurred from the point of BGC. So if you're not familiar with the Philippines, if you're not familiar with Manila, BGC is a development city where all the big skyscrapers are. It's very modern, very clean. It's kind of like an artificial bubble, but it's a beautiful place to live. If I was going to live in Manila permanently, BGC is the place I personally would want to be. If you go into Makati, which is kind of next door to BGC, it's a bit more real, a bit more nitty and gritty, a bit more of the real Philippines. BGC is kind of its own little bubble. Depends what you like. But anyway, I digress. I was out in BGC at one of the bars there. I'm going to not name any locations because I don't want to associate this experience to any business or any person. But I was at a very popular bar there. If you've ever been to BGC, if you've ever gone out there, you probably know this bar. And you would think that nothing could possibly happen in BGC. Like if you were to look at the whole Philippines, BGC is one of the safest places. But anyway, I was out this one night with some of my friends, and unfortunately, my phone had died. Now, this wouldn't really be a big problem. Most of the time, you can just give your phone over to the bar. They'll charge it for you. And in most other countries, Australia, for example, it's really not a big deal because even if your phone dies, if you have no way to get home, as long as you've got some money, you can jump in a taxi. And in Manila, of course, they've got taxis. So I thought, hey, today I'm not going to charge my phone. I'm not going to give it over to the bar. It had just died anyway, and I was ready to go. I didn't want to wait around for another half an hour for it to charge. Now, this is the first mistake that I had made because despite having lived in the Philippines for a significant amount of time, I rarely, if ever, took a taxi just off the street. Almost always, I would use a Grab because this way you can just book it through the app. It's nice and safe. You know who the driver is. When it comes to getting a taxi in the Philippines, there's not so much safety around it. Nobody knows who's picking you up. And if you get into that car, you don't know where it's going to take you. This is unfortunately the sad reality of what is happening in the Philippines, but in many other countries as well. And that's one of the positive things about using Uber or Grab or any of these rideshare apps. It's the safety arrangement that you get. And of course, some bad things do happen when using these rideshare apps, but usually the driver, their details are actually part of the app. So if anything does happen, something can be done about it. So in this situation, unfortunately, I didn't use a rideshare. I just thought I'd jump in a taxi. After all, I only had to go from BGC to Makati, which is where I was living at the time. And bearing in mind, guys, this wasn't that late, maybe 11 p.m, maybe midnight. Around that time, it's kind of the time to go home. The party was just getting started in the bar anyway. There was more people arriving. I was leaving at the right time. If you've ever been to Manila, you know the party typically gets going at about midnight. People go out at 3 a.m. all the way through until the next day. Sometimes they have an overnight session. It's a wild place, great for nightlife, but you need to know what you're doing. You need to be with the right people. You need to be aware of your surroundings, especially if you're a foreigner like me, because you stand out in a crowd. People can see you coming from a mile away. And these are all things that I would usually consider when I'm traveling around any part of the world. But I think because I was so comfortable having lived in the Philippines for a couple of years already and knowing my surroundings and knowing the bar and knowing how safe BGC was, I didn't think anything of it just jumping in a taxi outside this bar. Now the taxi I actually got into, it was, you know, a proper taxi. It looked like a taxi. It had all the markings of a taxi. It had the thing at the top that said taxi with the light. So there wasn't anything to really be concerned about at this time. And so I jumped in this taxi. I told him where I wanted to go. And this journey would take maybe 10, 15 minutes at most. Now I'll admit I had had a few drinks, but I certainly wasn't drunk. I wasn't out of it. I wasn't falling asleep, nothing like that. And so I jumped into the car, told him where I wanted to go, and off we went. Now in hindsight, what I should have done, and if you're ever in the same situation as me in the Philippines, is to give your phone to the bar or the restaurant or wherever you are, get them to charge it. And if you don't do that, get one of your friends to book a Grab for you. Don't jump into a taxi, even if you're in BGC, because funnily enough, this exact situation has happened to a few people that I know. And it seems to be a bit of a scam that's happening in the area. Now I know the Filipino authorities aren't gonna like me saying that, but it's a fact. After doing my own due diligence, more than one person has been robbed in this exact situation as myself. So anyway, jumping back to the story, I'm in this taxi and this particular taxi driver, he seems to go a strange way out of BGC. So the way I'm familiar with to get from this particular bar to Makati, there's like one road that takes you there. There are other ways to get from BGC to Makati, but typically people go in this one direction. If you go a different way, you're kind of going like the long way around. And so I didn't think much of it when he was going in this direction. I just thought, hey, sometimes these taxi drivers, they want to scam you a little bit. They want to get some more money out of you. Whatever, man. It's not a big deal to me. Go the long way, get a bit more money, fine. That's usually the only thing you have to worry about when you're getting taxis in these countries, is that they're going to charge you a little bit more money. And at the time, I just didn't care. I just wanted to get home. Now, thinking back at this situation, when he was going this long way out of BGC, I remember that he was talking to someone on the phone, or maybe to me. It seemed like maybe he was asking me a question, but I didn't understand what he was saying. I didn't know if he was talking to me. So I just stayed silent, and I was sitting right behind him in the taxi, so he couldn't actually see me. I couldn't see him. And so if he was asking me questions, if he was trying to speak to me and I was ignoring him, thinking he was speaking to someone else, as most taxi drivers do, then it might be possible that he thought I was asleep or was really drunk, I was out of it, whatever. This is kind of what I'm thinking in hindsight might have occurred. Not that it really matters, because a taxi driver is supposed to get you home safe, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. And so I remember him talking to me about something at first. Maybe I ignored him, maybe I just said a few words. My memory's a little bit off because it was a few years ago. But it was this kind of this weird situation where he said a few things, then stopped talking. And then next thing I know, we're on the main highway. I believe it's called EDSA or EDSA, whatever it's called. This is like the main road that goes from the airport right into Makati and so on. Now, if we had turned right, we would have been going towards Makati and in that direction. But he turned left, and at the time I didn't know because I didn't have my phone, I didn't have any battery. There was no map for me to check, and I just wasn't paying attention, to be honest. I was looking out the window, just chilling, waiting to get home, as you would. Most of the time when you're in a taxi, you're not super aware of your surroundings. You're just kind of trusting the driver to get you there. At least you do with Grab because they have the map. Taxis are a little bit different. And so we're on this main highway, we're going for a while, and I'm starting to think, hey man, like, we're taking a little bit of time to get to Makati. Like, where the hell are we going? And throughout this time, throughout this experience, this particular taxi driver was speaking to someone else on the phone. And I'm used to this. I mean, in Australia, in the UK, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. Most of the time, the taxi drivers, they've got their headset on, they're speaking to someone else on the phone in their own language. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, you know, maybe they're speaking to a friend, a partner, whatever. But after some time, I realized that we weren't really going in the direction that we needed to go. It was taking much longer than it should, and I didn't recognize where we were. We were still on EDSA, but we were going in the direction of the airport for some reason, which is the completely wrong way. Now, I'm quite a big guy compared to the Filipinos, and I'll be honest, I do have a bit of a temper on me. Sometimes I can be a bit rash, I can get angry, I can be irate, I can be blunt, direct, whatever I need to be in order to get what I want out of life. That's just how I've grown up. And so I wasn't scared to say to this guy, hey, where are you taking me? Where are we going? We're going in the completely wrong direction. And as a typical taxi driver would do, he's telling me that he isn't really sure where he wants to take me. You know, they pretend like they don't know the direction that they need to go, so they take you the long way in order to get more money out of you. This is a common scam that taxi drivers will scam people on. I totally get it, but this guy is just taking a piss at this point. Now, luckily for me, I had about 1% on my battery. I know I said at the very beginning I had no battery. I didn't have enough to book a ride share, or at least that's what I thought. I had the 1%. I thought, hey, I'll just roll with the 1%. So luckily for me, I could actually check on the map where we were. And we were right down near towards the airport, which is the complete opposite direction that I needed to go. And so I started to get a little bit aggro with this guy. I told him he's going the wrong way. He needs to turn off of this highway. He needs to take me back towards Makati. And so this guy says, yeah. He turns off the main road. And next thing I know, we're in some really dark, it looked like a bit of an industrial neighborhood. And he pulls over to the side of the road. Now I look left and right, there's like plots of land that are a bit empty. We're still like in Manila, we're still in a city area, but I mean, there's no lights, there's no street lamps, nothing like that. And the road's quite wide. And I really wish I could remember where this was, because the police ended up taking me here later on, which I'll get to in a second. And I couldn't figure out where it was. So anyway, he pulls over to the side of the road. And as taxi drivers have done to me many times in the past, he stops the car, he looks around and he says, can you tell me where I need to go? To which I replied, well, my phone is dead. So you show me your phone, I could put it in a map. He said he didn't have internet. You know, the old excuse. They never really want to help you, these taxi drivers. And so we were kind of just sat there looking at each other. Anyway, he asked me, what phone do I have? I said an iPhone. He pulled out a charging cable. He connected his charging cable to his car, gave me the other side, basically asking me to charge it so that I could get the map up and tell him where I needed to go. Now, bearing in mind, this guy is a taxi driver from Manila, from the Philippines. He knows full well where to go. He knows how to get from BGC to Makati. He's not a young man. He's not new to this. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so anyway, I had no choice. I plugged my phone into his charging cable, thinking, man, this guy might be trying to hack my phone or something, because that's just how I think, having a background in cybersecurity. But I just kind of brushed it off, thinking I was a little bit paranoid. Charged my phone, got it up to about 2-3%, went on the maps, and then I could see kind of where we were, and I was trying to direct him to where we needed to go. And this is the critical point, something that you need to learn from my experience. This taxi driver pretended like he couldn't see my phone, like he couldn't see the map. Maybe his eyes were bad, and so he wanted me to give him my phone. Now I'm holding my phone, showing him the map. It's not enough for him. He wants to take it. Again, this has happened to me in the past. It's never been a big deal. In this situation, I gave him my phone whilst it's still plugged into the charging cable. He takes it from me and very slowly turns back around to face the front. He's pretending to look at the map. Next thing I know, and it happens so fast, a car pulls up to the side of us, another taxi, and my taxi driver's window is already down. He simply takes my phone, puts it out of the window. This other taxi driver grabs the phone, and then it drives off. And this is the point where I just went wild. I'm shouting at this guy, what are you doing? You've given him my phone. You know, there's not really much I can say at this point because I don't even have my phone. I'm just getting angrier. And he's trying to calm me down. He's trying to lie to me, saying this other taxi driver is going to take me to my destination because he doesn't know where I'm going. And so I need to get out of his taxi. I need to go into this other taxi. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know what's happening here, but there's really not much for me to do. I'm getting angrier and angrier. I'm ready to fight this guy. And what he does is he actually shows me a knife just on his lap. So basically he's warning me, don't try anything silly. I've got a knife here. It's just not worth it. And I thought, you know, it's definitely not worth it for an iPhone. I can buy another one. My life's much more important. There's no one around. There's no lights. If something happened to me right here, all they have to do is say that I was drunk, blame me for creating an altercation, blame me for fighting them. And so they just defended themselves. That would be the story that they would tell the police. And so this all went through my head at the time. And I thought, you know what? It's not worth it. Now this other taxi that had taken my phone, it drove off a little bit, but it just drove up a few yards in front of the car that I was in. So I could easily walk to it if I wanted to. It's a fair walk, but it was just in front. Again, we're in this really dodgy neighborhood in the middle of nowhere. There's no lights, no one around. And I'm thinking, am I safer here in the car with this guy who's got a knife? Or am I safer outside? Because Manila's a bit of a dodgy place. So I had to weigh it up real quick, and I thought, you know what? He's taken my phone. I'll take my chances outside, because next thing I know, he might try and take my wallet, and there's absolutely no chance he's doing that. I'm ready to run, maybe fight if I really have to, but obviously this guy's got a knife. It's not something I want to get involved in. I'm not a trained martial artist or UFC fighter or military expert. If someone's got a knife, they're going to be in control of the situation. So I got out of the car. I left this guy's car door open because I thought, screw you, mate. I'm going to make it difficult for you to drive off anyway. Not that it does anything. They ended up just driving anyway. And so I started walking towards this car in front. As I was walking towards this car in front, the taxi I was originally in drove off at speed, you know, with their wheels skidding. But luckily for me, the taxi in front of me, which had my phone, was just sat there. It was parked, waiting for me to get in. The driver with the knife was actually saying to me, don't worry, get in that car. He'll take you where you need to go. I promise, trust me. And only when I started to get aggro did he show me this knife. So I thought, hey, maybe it's me being out of order. Like, he actually made me think that, even though I'm totally in the right here and he was trying to rob me. Anyway, I got out of this car knowing full well what was going to happen. He skidded off, he drove away. I started walking to this next taxi. I get right up to the door. The doors are locked. I bang on the window, trying to get this guy to open the door. Nothing's happening. I'm trying to open it. Again, it's locked. There's nothing happening here. And then something completely shocked me. I banged on the back window to try and get in, because obviously I'm going to get into the back of this car. I'm not getting into the front. And someone in the back seat banged back on the window. Now this made me jump a little bit, because I'm obviously a bit aggro. You know, I'm ready to fight someone. I wasn't expecting there to be more than one person in this car. And I couldn't see through the window because it was tinted. So for all I know, there's a small army of Filipinos ready to rob me, ready to do something worse than that, who knows, in the back of this car. And I think, if I look back at it, I believe that this car took my phone, or the people that were in this taxi took my phone, and they waited in front of the original taxi to see if I would do something to the driver. Because if I did, let's say I managed to overwhelm him, take his knife away, do something to him, for example, there's another group of people in a taxi right in front that are going to come to his rescue. All he's got to do is beep a few times, all of a sudden 10 people come out of a car, I'm done for. And that's what I think they were doing. I think they were waiting to see what I would do. Because like I said, I'm a bit bigger than most of the Filipinos, definitely not a trained military expert, certainly not going to attack anyone that's got a knife, but they don't know me, I don't know them. And so I think that's what the situation was. And as soon as I knocked on that window, they knocked back almost in a way to say like, hey, there's a few of us in this car. And so I took a step back, I was shocked. Next thing I know, boom, they're off. They're skidding their wheels, the car's driving off. I'm left there with no phone, realizing that I've just been robbed and I'm in the middle of nowhere. Now the scary part about this, despite the fact that I was robbed at knife point, that there was 2 taxis involved, that I was in the middle of nowhere without a phone and no way to get home, the scary part was when this guy took my phone, it was unlocked because I had shown him the map. I was getting the map on the phone to show him where to go, so I had obviously unlocked my phone. He took it at that point I had unlocked it and then gave it to this other taxi driver. This is what I was worried about most, because I was thinking, man, if they're in my phone, they can get on all my social media, they can get into my bank potentially, who knows what they can do. And it was freaking me out and I had no way to get home. But luckily for me, some other cars started coming in a direction of where I had just come from. I hailed down a taxi. I said, hey mate, my phone's just been taken. I've just been robbed. Please just take me to Milano or Knightsbridge or wherever it was that I was living in. I'll give you some money. But by the way, mate, please don't rob me because I've already been robbed. I don't have anything to offer. Anyway, nothing happened. Luckily, this other taxi driver, he took me home. There's obviously nothing he can do. He doesn't really speak English very well. I didn't even think to ask where he picked me up from. I didn't look at the license plate of this car, which again, in hindsight, I should have checked the license plate numbers of all of these cars. Ever since this experience, I now take a photo of the license plate, no matter what car I get in, whether it's a Grab, Uber, or a taxi. I do try to avoid taxis, but either way, I always take a picture of their license plate just in case. And so he took me home. I ran upstairs to my apartment, went on my computer, locked down all of my accounts, locked my phone down. And then I just kind of sat there thinking, shit, I've actually been robbed. And I don't have my phone now. It's got my SIM card in it. What a crazy experience. And unless you've been robbed before, you don't really understand the shock that you go through. And I know nothing really happened to me, but it was just a shock of the actual situation. And it really rocked me. I'll be honest, I had like PTSD for a few weeks. Maybe that's a bit of an over exaggeration, but it really did shock me for a while and made me really kind of concerned or worried about getting into grabs and taxis from then onwards. Even just going to strange neighborhoods or walking around on my own. As a guy who knows how to fight, as a bigger guy compared to the Filipinos, as someone who isn't afraid to stick up for themselves, it still rocked me. And I'm not afraid to admit it. It's put a totally different spin on how I view myself in the world and walking around in these situations. Because before this happened, I was pretty fearless. But then ever since this happened, I'm thinking, hey, like people can actually target me as well. Now I know that might sound a bit egotistical, but I'm just walking you guys through my thoughts and feelings at the time. So anyway, this experience occurred, one of the worst things ever, because your SIM card is attached to everything. So if someone takes your phone, you've got to get a new SIM card. I had to order one from Australia, which was such a mission. It's so difficult. Luckily, my mum and dad are in Australia. They can help organize that. They sent another one over to me. I just had to wait a few days for it. And funnily enough, at this point in time, I was thinking about leaving the Philippines. And because I had to wait for my SIM card to arrive, it meant I just had to wait around basically in the country. And during the time of having had my phone stolen and waiting for my new SIM card so that I could buy a new phone and then go somewhere else, I actually met my girlfriend, which I'm currently with now. So funnily enough, everything happens for a reason, and maybe it was meant to happen. You know, I was supposed to go through that experience. But anyway, guys, after getting robbed, I ended up going to the police station. A really good friend of mine helped me go there. They had a car, so I didn't have to go in any taxis or grabs. Like I said, I had this PTSD. I was super concerned of my safety. And so my friend took me to the police station. And so from there, I had to do two things. The first one was I had to go to a particular police station because they have all different jurisdictions. And so I went to this particular police station after the first one told me it's outside of their jurisdiction. I can't remember which one I went to. It's irrelevant for this story. I ended up finding the one I had to go to. They put me in their car and then we drove around the neighborhoods. This was during the daytime. Now, I'll be honest, guys, I went and did this on my own initially, going to the police station, going in there, jumping in the car, having them drive me around. And I was actually fearful for my safety even in this situation because I don't really trust the police in any country, let alone the Philippines. But I did it anyway because I had no choice. I had to report this situation. After all, BGC is supposed to be a safe place. You shouldn't be getting picked up by taxis in BGC and then trying to get to Makati or wherever you want to go and getting robbed. This will be a massive scandal if it came out. That's what I was thinking at the time. So I wanted to go and just get this situation solved. Anyway, luckily the police didn't do anything bad to me. They didn't try and rob me. They didn't try and extort me or anything like that. These are just things that are going through my head. I'm not saying the Filipino police would ever do something like that, but you just don't know. These were just the things that I was thinking. But they were driving me around all these neighborhoods, down EDSA. I was trying to figure out where this guy turned off, what neighborhoods we were in, what I saw from the point of getting robbed right through to going home when this new taxi picked me up. And long story short, I really couldn't figure it out, which is a real shame. And I couldn't find it on my map either. There was no like location history or anything like that. I tried for days and weeks to figure it out, but just couldn't. The idea was that the police would take me hopefully to the neighborhood where I actually got robbed. And there might be security cameras that they could look at to find out the license plate of the car, things like that. But we just couldn't do it. So the next thing that we decided to do was go to the police station in BGC and ask them to get the CCTV footage of me getting in the taxi outside of this very popular bar. So we went through that process, took a few days. Long story short, the security cameras outside of this bar, which is a real popular main road, the security cameras on this main road, apparently at the time of me getting into this taxi, they weren't working. There was a problem with them. You couldn't make this up. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe there's something a bit deeper going on here. Maybe there's some kind of partnership between the police and these people who picked me up. Now, I'm nothing special. I don't work in the government or anything like that, but I know a lot of government officials go to this particular bar. I don't know if I was targeted. I don't know if it was random, but there definitely is some kind of situation, some kind of partnership, in my opinion, between these criminals and the police. Nothing ever got resolved over this, and since I was robbed, I remember obviously I had to stay in Manila for a while. I had to wait for my SIM card. It took a couple of weeks, I think, from memory. It would have taken a few days, but it took a few weeks because my parents decided to send it in the normal post, and the normal post in the Philippines takes ages as well as it does in Australia, instead of express. That was an argument I had with my parents, of course, but hey, whatever, it's not a big deal. I ended up meeting my girlfriend during that time. But throughout that time, I spoke to many other people, other expats, other foreigners, other tourists. Funnily enough, I wasn't the only person to experience this situation, to get robbed in exactly the same way. Now, I don't know if the taxis are taking people to the same areas to rob them. I have a feeling that the only reason this particular taxi driver turned off of the EDSA road was because I started getting aggravated. I started getting a bit loud. You know what I mean? Like, because you know they're taking the piss, they're going a completely wrong way. I don't want to spend all this money just for the trip. I know I'm not bothered at the beginning, but like, come on, there's a certain level that we have to play with here. And I look back and I think, you know, if I was asleep in the car, which I would never do, by the way, but if I was asleep or if I was too drunk or if I just didn't register where he was taking me, who knows where I would have gone? It might have been a lot worse. Or maybe it was their plan all along to turn off and go to this particular neighborhood that I was in. I really don't know. So that's my story, my experience of getting robbed in the Philippines. I don't want it to put you guys off actually going to the Philippines. It's a beautiful country. There's so much to see. Every place is different. You've got nature, you've got the city life. I've lived there for a couple of years myself, off and on. I've lived in Davao, Cebu, Manila, Boracay, Palawan. They're all very different. The people are beautiful. I mean, Filipinos have a really good reputation. The only problem is there is a lot of crime. I think some people in government are trying to fix that, some are not. But either way, if you go there on holiday, if you go there to buy property, if you go there to be a nomad or an expat, most of the time, nothing bad is going to happen to you. If you compare it to, say, living in the UK or the USA, I mean, the UK is very dangerous, in London at least. The USA, you've got lots of gun crime. I think if you're coming from the UK or the US and you go to the Philippines, you're going to think it's very chilled. Same if you're from Latin America. I know plenty of people from Brazil who live in the Philippines, and they don't know what anyone is talking about when they say that it's dangerous, because Brazil is obviously a very dangerous place. So it really depends on your life experience, where you grew up. And I don't want this story to put you off experiencing a beautiful country, because there's so much potential, so much opportunity there. And it'll be a real shame if you let this one story prevent you from going to experience it yourself. And ever since then, I still go and travel to the Philippines. I've got plenty of friends there. Most of my staff are from the Philippines. And beside this one experience, I don't have a lot of bad to say about the people or the country. However, I did want to make this video today, guys, to share something deep and personal with you, and to give you guys a few life lessons based on looking back at my experience, in hindsight, the things that I should have done that might have prevented this from happening. So hopefully you can prevent something like this happening to you, no matter what country you go to. Speaking of which, guys, if you want to be location free, if you want to live in a country to lower your living costs so that you can save more money and invest it into high growth emerging markets, check out the link in the description below this video. I've got a free community where I talk about how you can achieve this yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.